Good evening, everyone. It's the 28th of December, and you have reached me here live at the Hillbilly Think Tank. This is Spencer Cat coming at you live from Hardin County, in Tunnel Hills area of Elizabethtown. Feel free, put any questions or comments you want down here in the comments block, and I will try and get to it before my episode is over. And I'm hoping that everyone is having a great 12 days of Christmas. I think we're on the 4th now. I counted it up the other day. Actually, when I was sitting in church this morning, I counted up. I think we're on the 4th, maybe 5th. And as you know, the 12th day will be that day of the Magi, or the wise men. So January 5th, Dia de los Reyes for our Hispanic Catholic friends. But on this 4th day of Christmas, my birthday's coming up soon, right on the 6th day of Christmas. Yeah, it's always fun. But thinking about our economy and how it has been this year, has it helped you out? Has it really helped me out? You know, Scott Galloway has identified that we now exist in a Hunger Games economy. That's how I sum up what he's calling it. Scott Galloway is another podcaster, millionaire actually too, who is really helping define what it means for us to live in this economy where we've got people at extreme wealth at the 1% top, and our divide between the two of us, the gulf, is becoming larger and larger. You know. Now, in my opinion, I don't know that Mr. Galloway would say this, but this is the result of the economic libertarian policies being pushed in the name of Christian nationalism that's given us the MAGA movement. We've married religious intolerance with the idea that the filthy rich deserve to be rich because God wants it to be so in America, while simultaneously telling those who make less than 1 million a year that God thinks they are lazy and worthless. Well, this has given us a Hunger Games economy. Anyone not born into wealth or lucky enough to get rich is looked down on as a peasant loser. You know, we love to call those people's names, right? It's so much easier to berate folks as white trash, ghetto, or filthy immigrants when we worship our illusion that if you just work and grind long enough and hard enough, you too will become a millionaire one day, because we live in a land that Jesus blessed as his favorite. Now, I identify my little neck of the woods as God's country, but I recognize this is a metaphor for being blessed with primordial gold that I breathe in when I breathe clean air in my backyard. I drink clean water from a garden hose and get to, feel that high on life when my wife and I pet our dogs while hiking an hour or so every day in the most beautiful hills and hollers in the world, thanks to Kentucky. And we can hug each other here in God's country. But again, that to me is a beautiful metaphor for this feeling that I get from Kentucky, from being a proud hillbilly. But I don't fail to recognize that although I was born to parents that suffered from the trauma of combat, PTSD, and alcoholism, along with undiagnosed mental instability in another that was sane washed through religious fanaticism, my life was thoroughly blessed by maternal grandparents that fostered resilience in me before my parents divorced. And my mom's addiction to religious fanaticism got her to marry a violently abusive man that traumatized all of her kids that came before him and after him. Now, I know that it was the same resilience I inherited that kept me from being called white trash by those lucky enough to never suffer during their childhood or adulthood as they fail upward and their trust fund funded life from their cradle to their grave. Now, there are those of us here in this real Kentucky, this real America, that listen to the fairy tale that tells us that we too will someday be billionaires if we hate the right people and blame foreigners, gays, transgenders, and non-Christians for the fact that we are also not millionaires. Right? This is the Hunger Games economy. Shit on fellow little guys for being marginalized. You know, this is what you see when you hear or see that redneck that's barely making $35,000 a year blaming an immigrant for the same redneck not making $135,000 a year, while at the same time ignoring the fact that the folks who tell us to blame the immigrants, they're also the same ones who will not vote to fund subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. So when the nearly poverty level redneck, right, loses those funds from the Affordable Care Act on the 31st of December, and his health care is no longer covered by Medicaid, and he can't afford that skyrocketed health care premium, who's he going to blame when his wife gets breast cancer and he has to watch her suffer and slowly die from it? Still going to blame those immigrants? Or are you going to look at the fact that you are a person who voted for someone with an R by their name because they've sold you this Hunger Games lie, all right? And they convinced you that your salary was low because of the immigrants, while at the same time, those people with the R by their name that you voted for voted to kill your wife's health care subsidies. This is the Libertarian Hunger Games economy. What about the African Americans that voted for the current administration because Libertarian Alternative Internet News said a vote for a Democrat was a vote for nuclear war because Democrats support the Ukraine and Russia will nuke us into oblivion? That's what you're told on that alternative news network, that the Russians, if we supported the Ukrainians, were going to nuke us into oblivion if you elect anyone but Trump. Are you happy now that this Hunger Games economy, that, you know, in this Hunger Games economy, it's cheaper to buy guns and join a gang if you're a young man than it is to buy pencils and clothes for middle schoolers so that they can go to school and wear clothes that are nice enough to go to school every day? You know, it's cheaper to become a gang member than it is to sit in a public middle school classroom where you look down on yourself if you don't have, your parents didn't buy you the pencils that they're supposed to, or they didn't buy the clothes that you needed to go there every day. They couldn't wash them. You know, is it easier now in this economy, this Hunger Games economy, just to go be a gangbanger? And we want to blame everyone else. But the fact that we sit here and we vote for people with R by their names because we've been sold the idea that in this Hunger Games economy, you're going to be a millionaire someday, right? Are you happy that being friends with Putin has saved us from investing in saving democracy in Europe, but it's come at the cost of fighting for oil with our son's blood in Venezuela? Do you really think China and Russia are going to sit idly by as we seize their oil tankers from Venezuela so we can enrich our oil men? Now, do you Hispanics for Trump really think that voting for anyone with an R by a name saved you from being deported or your daughters from the next Epstein that enables libertarians to take liberties with your daughters anywhere their billionaire islands exist? Really? Do you really think that it was the price of eggs? That's what it was all about? Are you glad that you voted for that R? Come on, Kentucky. Come on, America. The GOP is now the grifting old pedophiles cartel for billionaires. They only need hillbillies like me to hate on minorities so that I will be oblivious to their crimes against us all. I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, not just the 1%, not just for the trust fund babies. I do not care what race, ethnic identity, or religion you do or don't belong to, as long as you work hard to feed, shelter, and house you and your loved ones. Now, as a kid, I was taught that God don't make no junk, or at least that's what that t-shirt said in the 1980s. That means that even though I'm a hillbilly, my kin and I are not white trash, regardless of what the 1% thinks, regardless of how often they're going to call us to DC to be their tributes and their Hunger Games. Even though some of my friends at work and church have a different skin color, God never ever said one of his humans were created less than others. So I'm working to make my world more like the kingdom of agape love, where everyone's going to receive the health care they need, not just what the Hunger Games will allow if they don't die while playing life's American Hunger Games. I will strive. I'm going to strive my best to see every working American gets to earn a living wage. I will not stop until every Kentucky citizen has the right to quality education at each corner and holler in this state, starting here in Hardin County. Remember, in Kentucky, united we stand and divided we fall. This is not the Hunger Games. Our children will not be tributes to the game of libertarian billionaires because we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. We truly love our neighbors as ourselves. Now, before I sign off, let me see here if I got any comments down here in the comments section. I see Coffee Cats and True Crime. Wow, that's a statement about its prices. It's sad that that's where we are. And isn't it? What is the price, though, of our freedom? Were we really willing to sell out our freedom over the price of eggs? Those eggs were only up because of a bird flu that was killing chickens around the nation. I lost two of my backyard hens to that same bird flu. I knew that my neighbors who didn't have their own backyard's chickens were paying higher prices on their eggs, not because of anything that Biden was doing or not doing, or that anyone with an R by their name could do better. Some of these things happen naturally, and some of those things affect the economy. But what doesn't come naturally? That is trillionaires and billionaires. They don't just happen because they're the best people in the world and they aren't any better than you and they aren't any better than me. That's just the fact of the matter. And just because they're billionaires, whether God put them there or not, doesn't mean that I need to see the price of your health care go up. I don't need to watch my neighbor's wife die from breast cancer. I don't need to watch my neighbor's kid die from childhood onset illnesses that could have been treated and could have allowed that kid to be saved, right? Copycats and true crime. Yeah, let's see. You said absolutely. You don't get that kind of wealth by being a decent person. So again, I've been watching Scott Galloway lately, and he talks about, yeah, he has been a millionaire 3 times, lost it twice, gained it back. He's brought up this idea, and I think it's a pretty good one. We shouldn't tax anyone 30 and younger. Give those folks the chance to accrue enough of a savings that they can start their own families without going into debt for life. They can buy their own homes, get that down payment necessary to do it, because we know you need to own your own place if you're going to generate wealth for your family for years to come, generations to come, right? And he says, and I think it's a damn good idea, let's get back to the way it was for nearly 100 years, or at least 70 out of the last 100 years. If you made $10 million or more, you were taxed way more than you are now. But he points out, once he hit that $10 million mark, he effectively paid no more taxes. He says it's everyone that makes the 300,000 to $1 million that automatically pays 50% right now. I'd say it's even less than that, since I know I don't make 300,000 a year, but I know that my tax rate is far higher than the billionaires and the trillionaires, or as he says, anyone making 10 million and above, they effectively pay no taxes. We've got to get rid of that. Now, when I'm reading and looking at him, he seems like a decent person, but he recognizes that it's not just because he was a perfect guy that he's become a millionaire 3 times in his life. It's because he got an education at UCLA and then got to go to one of the best graduate schools in the nation. And having that by his name is what has opened those doors and those networks that no one else will get. And that we're making it harder and harder and more impossible every single day for anyone else in America to truly be able to raise themselves up by their bootstraps. We're making the cost of going to university so expensive and making few and fewer scholarships available at those important top tier universities, making it harder and harder to get there. All right. So, yeah, Coffee Cats and True Crime says maybe you can be a good person as a millionaire, but definitely not as a billionaire 1%er. Yeah, and so he has talked about the fact that he knows he's gotten to the point where his portfolio is diversified enough nationally and internationally that he's not going to go down. So now he looks forward to giving away as much as possible over that point that he knows he's secure in for the rest of his life, and his family is going to be secure. So we have to say to ourselves, we know that there are folks that are voting against at least 50% of this nation. More than likely against 90 to 99% of this nation. But they're bamboozling us into thinking that Hunger Games, libertarian economy is good for all of us. It's not. Not without some regulation, not without a safety net for those of us who work our damn ass off all of our life. So I'll leave it at that. Won't go on too long of a rant. My wife said I should keep it to 10 minutes. I didn't do that. I'm at 20. But I hope that everyone else out there has a great year. And I hope as we head into this year, we realize the gravity of the situation to take this country back from the billionaires and the trillionaires. It's up to us to get out and make sure that we get our neighbors out and our neighbors' friends out, our friends and our friends' friends out to vote for folks who aren't going to try to put themselves in the back pocket of the billionaires and trillionaires and ride their coattails into oblivion while the rest of us are forced down on our knees. Happy New Year, and God bless our corazones.